Let's talk about a shift you probably didn't see coming. A subtle but significant change in the way young Americans perceive the world. It's a shift that challenges long-held assumptions and rewrites the narrative of global power. Gen Z is looking at China with fresh eyes, a perspective unburdened by the Cold War rhetoric that shaped previous generations. They're assessing China not through the lens of political ideology, but through the experiences of a hyper-connected digital world. For the first time in years, fewer Americans, especially young ones, see China as the bad guy. The narrative of China as a monolithic threat is losing its grip on the younger generation's imagination. Gen Z, raised on memes and global feeds, isn't buying the old America good, China bad story. They're digital natives accustomed to diverse perspectives and instant access to information, making them less susceptible to traditional propaganda. Instead, they see China as a tech powerhouse, a nation rapidly innovating in areas like artificial intelligence, mobile payments, and renewable energy. They recognize China's growing influence in the global tech landscape, a place of futuristic cities and viral trends. The gleaming skylines of Shanghai and Shenzhen, the innovative spirit of its tech hubs, and the global reach of its social media platforms paint a different picture than the one often portrayed in mainstream media. Their view isn't shaped by cable news with its often polarized narratives and focus on geopolitical tensions, but by TikTok clips of bullet trains and shopping apps that make Amazon look slow. They're experiencing China through the lens of convenience, efficiency, and technological advancement. This isn't a blip, it's a generational rewrite of the global narrative. It's a fundamental shift in how young people perceive global power dynamics and cultural influence. While America exported movies and burgers, China built influence through innovation and digital culture. They've invested heavily in technological development and cultivated a vibrant online ecosystem that resonates with young people worldwide. For Gen Z, it's not about politics. It's about which country is building the future they want. They're drawn to nations that are investing in cutting-edge technologies, creating sustainable urban environments, and fostering a culture of innovation. So, how did China go from rival to cool in the eyes of a new generation? What strategies did they employ to capture the attention and admiration of young people around the world? It's a story of ambition, adaptation, and a total shift in the rules of influence. It's a case study in how a nation can leverage technology, culture, and strategic communication to reshape its global image. China realized the real battleground is the screen in your pocket, the digital space where young people spend their time and form their opinions. And they changed the conversation, one viral video at a time. By mastering the art of short-form video and leveraging the power of social media, they've successfully bypassed traditional gatekeepers and engaged directly with a global audience. To truly grasp the magnitude of China's transformation, you need to look beyond the economic figures and the infrastructure projects. It's about understanding the deeper currents of influence. And to understand that, you need to understand soft power. What it is, how it works, and why it matters on the global stage. Soft power is about winning hearts and minds through culture, not force. It's the subtle art of attraction, of making your values and ideas appealing to others. For decades, America's been the undisputed king of this game. Think Hollywood, the dream factory that shapes global aspirations. Nike, a brand that transcends sportswear to embody a spirit of ambition and achievement. And pop stars, whose music and image resonate with billions across borders. American culture, for better or worse, is everywhere. It permeates every corner of the globe. Even if people disagree with American politics, they often find themselves captivated by American movies, hooked on American music, and influenced by American trends. China, for decades, simply couldn't compete on this cultural playing field. They were playing a different game altogether. Its global image was overwhelmingly tied to its government and its political system, not to a vibrant and appealing culture that could win hearts and minds. Meanwhile, South Korea was quietly but effectively winning the world over with K-pop, a cultural phenomenon that swept across continents, and Oscar-winning films like Parasite, showcasing the depth and artistry of Korean cinema, making politics almost an afterthought, as the world embraced Korean culture. So what was China's most famous cultural export in the West? What image came to mind when people thought of Chinese culture? It was that chop suey font, that stereotypical, often clumsy typeface used on countless Chinese restaurant menus. A font, ironically, designed in Ohio, not Beijing. a symbol of Chinese culture created by someone else. Their cultural identity, their very image, was literally being shaped overseas, often in ways that felt inauthentic and limiting. Chinese leaders recognized this disparity. They saw the power of culture and knew they needed a fundamental change in strategy. They watched Japan captivate global audiences with anime, a vibrant and imaginative form of storytelling, and they saw America dominate the world stage with movies, creating iconic characters and narratives that resonated across cultures, and they realized something crucial. That being the world's factory, the producer of everything, simply wasn't enough to command true global influence. They needed to inspire, to create desire, not just manufacture goods. They needed to tap into the power of their own rich and diverse culture. That realization sparked a decades-long quest, a deliberate and ambitious effort, to build a new, authentic global identity, one that reflected the true spirit and dynamism of modern China. China wanted to be more than just a label on the back of your gadgets, a source of cheap goods. They wanted to be the brand you admire, the source of innovation and creativity that captures your imagination. And that meant rewriting the rules of the game, challenging the established order, of soft power from the ground up, crafting a new approach to cultural influence that was uniquely Chinese. China's first attempts at global branding. As the country opened its doors, it wasn't just about exporting goods. There was a desire, a nascent ambition to project an image, a narrative, onto the world stage. But how do you brand a nation? How do you encapsulate centuries of history, culture, and tradition into a digestible, appealing package for a global audience? Awkward, to say the least. Early attempts were often stilted, formal, and frankly a little bit cringeworthy. Think stiff handshakes, forced smiles, and presentations that seemed to miss the mark entirely. The cultural nuances, the unspoken cues, were often lost in translation, leading to some truly uncomfortable encounters. In the Mao era, they blasted out dry propaganda. It was a top-down approach, a monologue rather than a dialogue. The message was clear, concise, and unwavering, but it lacked the subtlety and nuance needed to resonate with a global audience. Think your dad reading a manual, but less fun. Imagine endless speeches, droning on about production quotas and ideological purity. It was informative, perhaps, but hardly inspiring. The passion, the energy, the human element were all but absent. The world yawned, the message simply didn't connect. It felt distant, detached, and ultimately irrelevant to the lives and concerns of people outside of China. There was a disconnect between the message being sent and the way it was being received. Culture spreads from the ground up, not from a government loudspeaker. It's about shared experiences, authentic connections, and genuine expressions of creativity. It's about the stories we tell, the art we create, and the values we share. Things changed in the late 90s under Jiang Zemin, who admired Hollywood's pull. He recognized the power of storytelling, the ability of film and television to shape perceptions and influence hearts and minds. He saw how Hollywood had successfully branded America to the world. Enter the going global policy. This was a strategic shift, a deliberate effort to integrate China into the global economy and to project its influence on a global scale. It was about more than just trade. It was about building relationships, fostering understanding, and shaping the global narrative. Chinese companies started buying up brands. This was a pragmatic move, a way to gain access to established markets, technologies, and expertise. It was also a way to acquire brand recognition and to leverage the reputation of established Western brands. Investing abroad and embedding themselves in the global economy, China became an indispensable part of the global supply chain, a key player in international trade, and a major investor in economies around the world. Suddenly, made in China became owned by China. The shift was subtle but significant. It signaled a new era of Chinese economic power and influence. But economic ties alone didn't spark affection. While trade and investment were important, they weren't enough to build genuine connections or to foster a sense of cultural affinity. Owning a Lenovo laptop doesn't make you love Chinese culture. It's a transactional relationship, a practical choice, but it doesn't necessarily translate into a deeper appreciation for Chinese art, music, or philosophy. It was a start, but it wasn't enough. Economic integration was a necessary first step, but it wasn't the ultimate goal. There was a need to go beyond mere transactions and to cultivate a deeper understanding and appreciation for Chinese culture. Jiang realized China needed its own stories and heroes. To truly connect with the world, China needed to share its own narratives, to showcase its own cultural icons, and to tell its own unique story, and dreams to truly compete. It wasn't enough to simply sell products. China needed to sell dreams, aspirations, and a vision of the future. The foundation was set, but the next step was capturing imaginations, not just markets. The challenge was to move beyond economic influence and to cultivate cultural appeal. China had to move from being a neighbor to being an inspiration, to become a source of creativity, innovation, and cultural enrichment for the world. The real challenge, making the world care about Chinese culture, not just Chinese products. It was about fostering a genuine appreciation for Chinese art, music, literature, and philosophy. That meant a new approach, one that would finally connect emotionally, an approach that would resonate with people on a human level, transcending cultural barriers and fostering a sense of shared humanity. By 2009, China went big, $6 billion to build a global media empire. State-run outlets like Xinhua and CCTV expanded worldwide, especially in places Western media ignored. CGTN set up shop in Africa and the US, hiring local journalists and offering a China-friendly perspective. For a while, it worked. People wanted an alternative to Western news. But then, social media changed everything. Young people ditched TV news for viral clips and influencer posts. China's shiny newsrooms suddenly looked outdated. The real gatekeepers were now algorithms and creators, not anchors. China had the infrastructure but not the audience. To reach Gen Z, they needed a new voice, one that felt real, not rehearsed. The era of state-sponsored messaging was over. The age of the relatable creator had begun. While old-school media flopped, China's real power move was Made in China 2025. It wasn't just an economic plan, it was a tech revolution. China poured billions into robotics, AI, and green tech, aiming to leapfrog the West. The punchline, Made in China = cheap, got flipped. Now it meant cutting-edge innovation. By 2024, China had already hit most of its ambitious goals. While other countries argued, China built the future. This is why Gen Z's feeds are full of bullet trains, folding phones, and sci-fi cities. You don't need to know politics to be wowed by a drone delivering coffee. China's new soft power isn't movies, it's visible, touchable progress. The country's biggest weakness became its greatest strength, a brand built on real, futuristic change. Want proof? Look at electric vehicles. A decade ago, China was nowhere in the car game. Now it's the EV capital of the world. In 2024, China made more electric cars than everyone else combined. Brands like BYD and NIO are now global players, outpacing old giants. This wasn't luck, it was a government master plan: subsidies, charging stations, perks for EV owners. China rewired how 1.4 billion people drive in just 10 years. For Gen Z, this is climate action in motion. While the West debates, China delivers. Viral videos of sleek, affordable Chinese EVs changed the narrative. Suddenly, China wasn't just a factory, it was the leader in green tech. The message wasn't political, it was about better products and a cleaner future. For a generation obsessed with sustainability, that's real influence. China proved it could make the future, not just make things. As China's tech soared, so did its social media game. The old top-down approach was out, influencers were in. China's strategy? Borrow a boat to go out to sea, let Western creators tell China's story. Vloggers and tech reviewers showcased China's food, cities, and tech, not politics. The result: authentic, viral content that made China look modern and relatable. Gen Z trusts creators more than institutions, so this worked better than any state campaign. China didn't need its own boat, just the most exciting destination. The Influencer Playbook let China bypass old media and speak Gen Z's language. The last piece? America stepped back, and China stepped up. As the US turned inward, China filled the gap in Africa and Latin America with the Belt and Road Initiative. They built roads, ports, and power plants. No lectures, just deals. For developing nations, China became a partner, not just a distant power. Chinese investment soared as US aid shrank. Young people in these regions saw China building their future, literally. China's hands-on approach built real goodwill, while the West seemed distracted. Gen Z, the most globally aware generation, noticed who was actually showing up. Even Europe started warming up to China as the US retreated. China's rise wasn't just earned, it was also a gift from rivals who left the field open. Put it all together and Gen Z's admiration for China makes sense. China played the long game, adapting, investing, and learning to speak to a new generation. They shifted from propaganda to innovation, from state media to social media. They turned manufacturing into a badge of futuristic progress, and they filled the global void left by America's retreat. China didn't win Gen Z with ideology, they won with action and a vision of the future. Their playbook is out there for anyone to see, so the real question isn't why Gen Z loves China, it's who's got next.